Let's add 2 styling details to the jeans. In this lesson, we will cover the following: creating a tied sash, creating a rolled cuff look. Load the most recent snapshot from the previous lesson. We do not have a pattern for the sash, so we will create one. There are multiple ways to create a sash in 3D. The most common method is to create a separate pattern piece for each section of the sash. We will create one pattern piece for the portion that wraps around the waist, one pattern for the knot, and 2 patterns for the ties that hang from the knot. In the case that we already have a pattern, we can split the pattern into these sections. Let's begin with the portion that wraps the waist by finding the waistband measurement. Holding Shift, multi-select the lower edge of the waistband. Skip the last section which attaches to the fly. In the context view, under Actions, we see the 2D length. Let's note this for later use. Click Save Ruler. The ruler is saved under the Resources, Params, Rulers tab. We can name the ruler Waistband. Selecting the waistband edge at center front, we see the waistband height. Let's save a ruler and name it Height. Using Insert Rectangle, we can create a new pattern piece. Clicking in the 2D window, the Insert Rectangle window shows. Unlink the width and the height. We need the piece to be slightly shorter than the waistband, as the knot pattern will add to the circumference measurement once the full sash is stitched. Input 29 inches for the width. Let's make the sash height a bit smaller than the height of the waistband. Input 1.25 inches for the height. Note, if you are not working in inches, you can type 29IN and the system will automatically convert the values to your system units. Let's make the piece half the width so that we can add symmetry. We can do this by using mathematic operations in the text field. Type a / after the width and the number 2, then click Away. Half the value is automatically calculated. Click Insert to create the new piece. Select the edge of the new piece and create edge symmetry. Next, let's make the knot piece. Insert Rectangle and click in the 2D window. This piece should have the same width as the previous piece's height at 1.25 inches. The knot piece will be sewn in a loop to create the look of a tied area. Because of this, we will need the height of the piece to be twice the width. Input 2.5 inches. Last, we'll make the hanging tie pieces of the sash. The length varies based on the intended look. Let's make the pattern 1.25 inches for the width and 10 inches for the height. Select the new piece and create X symmetry. You can pause the video here if you need more time to create the sash pieces. Let's arrange and stitch the sash. Place the sash piece that wraps the waist in the back low waist cluster. We will create a new cluster for this piece. Scale the cluster so that there is a small gap at the front. We can place the knot and tie pieces in the front torso or low waist cluster. Since we already have pieces in the front torso cluster, let's place them in the front low waist. We will change the cluster wrap type to flat. Use the 3D gizmo to position the pieces to align with the opening of the waistband piece. We need to adjust the layers for the sash pieces. The waistband is at layer 2 and the belt loops are at layer 8. The highest layer used on the leg patterns is layer 6. Let's set the piece that wraps the waist at layer 3, the tie pieces at layer 7, and the knot at layer 8. When simulating a belt or sash, it can be useful to tack the piece that wraps the waist to the waistband. We will add internal points so that we can tack the pieces. Click Insert, then use the drop-down and choose Point. This tool allows us to place a point on the edge or inside the pattern piece. Let's place a point under the belt loop positions on the waistband. Hover the mouse over the waistband and click to place a point. To move a point, use the Select tool. Add a point for the other belt loops. Next, we need to add points to the sash piece as well. We add a point slightly to the left of the center back. Note a symmetrical point appears. Add 2 points on one symmetrical side of the pattern approximately where the belt loops will be. We can line up the center back of the piece to help determine the approximate position. Stitch the points from the sash to the waistband. Next, we will stitch the knot piece. We can bring the piece that wraps the waist closer to the knot in the 2D window, or we can stitch in the 3D window. Stitch both edges of the knot piece to the piece that wraps the waist. The stitch lengths do not match. We can use Match or drag the stitch points to match. We will leave the stitch at the center of the edge. Then we stitch the top and bottom of the knot piece together to form a loop. To help with simulation, we can add fold lines to the knot piece. Selecting the top and bottom edge, use Clone by Offset to create 2 internal lines. We can clone by the default value. Selecting the internal lines, make them fold lines. Set the fold type to soft, and make the prepare angle negative so that the edges fold towards the body. Check in the 3D window so that the fold direction is correct. If not, flip the fold direction as needed. Last, stitch the hanging tie pieces to the knot. Match the stitch lengths. You can pause the video here if you need time to arrange and stitch the sash. To create folds in the knot piece, we can insert a pleat. Use Insert Pleat and place a pleat on the knot piece. Set the width to 0.5 inches. Last, let's remove the belt loops from Use in 3D. Under Styling, turn on Auto Lock. Select the sash pieces and click the Advanced drop-down. Uncheck, then recheck Use in 3D so that the dressed pieces lock. Click Update 3D. The sash is now dressed. We should lower the grid size on the sash pieces. Set the knot piece to a grid size of 0.3 and the ties and sash to 0.5. Updating 3D, the sash looks much better. Let's add a bit more style to the knot area. We can adjust the length of the stitches from the sash and tie pieces to the knot to be shorter. Uncheck Match, then drag the stitch point. Repeat for the other stitches. Update 3D. Now the edges of the pieces gather into the knot piece. Let's add the belt loops back. We now have a sash for our jeans. Let's save a manual snapshot. Pause here if you need some time to finish dressing and styling the sash. Next, let's make a rolled cuff. There are two types of rolled cuffs. One is a design detail where the cuff is shaped so that it folds nicely over the hem. For this approach, we create a new pattern to sew to the hem. This keeps the jeans the same length. The second type is a styling rolled cuff. For this cuff, the hem is folded up and the hem circumference may be narrower or wider than the area where it is folded over. For this approach, we shorten the jeans by using part of the jeans leg to create the rolled cuff pattern. If the hem is narrower or wider than the area where it is folded over, the folded area is more bunched. Both methods start with the same action. Select the hem and use Clone Edge by Offset. Input a negative value equal to the height of the cuff. Let's use -2 inches. For the stylized rolled cuff, input 2 for the amount. Check Extend Shrink to Edge. For a stylized rolled cuff, we would slice the top internal line and make the second a fold line. Since these jeans are tapered and already cropped, let's use the first method. Let's create a pattern for the rolled cuff. Use Insert and choose Extract from the drop-down. Hover over the hem of the pant. Click once to select the area. Click again in the same area to extract as a new piece. Do the same for the back leg. Select the top edge of the new piece and create edge symmetry for the front and back leg. Select both pieces and cancel inner symmetry, choosing to keep both. We now have a piece that can be folded and already has internal points where the fold line would be. With the pen tool, turn on Snap to Point and draw a line from the fold on the front and back pieces. Select the new internal line and check Fold under Edge Properties. Create X symmetry for the cuff patterns. Then we stitch the cuff to the pant leg. Stitch the top edge of the folded cuff to the hem of the pant. Stitch the cuff top to bottom. Stitch the side and inseams of the cuff patterns. If you need more time to create and stitch the cuffs, pause here. Now we can arrange the cuffs. Place them in the side leg cluster. Pay close attention that the correct front and back leg cuff is placed in the correct cluster. Let's check the fold direction in 3D. To create the rolled cuff look, we want the folded edge of the piece to be most visible. Folding the pattern in this way, with the fold facing up and the seam edges aligned with the hem, will create the best look. Arrange the cuffs so that the seam of the cuff and the pant hem align. Before we dress the cuffs, we need to check the 3D layer. Let's increase the cuff pieces to layer 7. Because the pleat goes all the way to the hem edge is also folded like a pleat. With the Select tool and Edit Points on, drag the edge of the pleat to be above the hem of the pant. We can remove the iron effect from the pleat. In styling, use the drop-down under Advanced to clear the styling and dress. Let's lower the grid of the cuff patterns to 0.5. The cuff is still not fully smooth. With the pinch tool, we select an area on one side of the cuff, then holding Shift, select an area on the other side of the cuff. Turn on the 3D gizmo. Click and drag the red square. This pulls the two selected areas away from each other. Update 3D. Now the cuff looks great. Let's save a manual snapshot. Great job! We've now completed constructing the jeans.